Humanity had always been underestimated by the broader galaxy, a species dismissed as fragile, chaotic, and unworthy of serious attention, a small blue world on the edge of a star cluster that had been catalogued but never truly considered. And for decades of various alien councils, from the crystalline Varaxi to the cephalopodic Tari, had exchanged smug observations about Earth's primitive technology, its bickering nations, and its unpredictable species, and they had laughed openly in their diplomatic forums whenever Earth was brought up, calling our attempt at space exploration quaint, amusing, and ultimately inconsequential, all while humanity quietly observed, studied, and prepared, not with arrogance, but with methodical patience born from centuries of knowing that being underestimated could be the galaxy's gravest mistake. For behind the seemingly chaotic governments and uneven scientific progress lay an indomitable spirit, a relentless capacity for adaptation and innovation, and a will that had carried humans through wars that had devastated entire continents, pandemics that had reshaped societies, and environmental catastrophes that had forced the species to rethink survival. And now, as rumors of a Galactic Council decision to formally ignore or even sanction Earth's complete isolation reached human ears, the leaders of humanity had convened, not in panic, but in strategic clarity, deciding to announce their presence in a way the galaxy could not ignore, to reveal the culmination of decades of secret shipbuilding, technological breakthroughs, and tactical planning. And this announcement was not made in words, but in actions, as the first massive fleet of human warships, crafted from alloys that could absorb energies previously thought unstoppable and powered by engines capable of interstellar travel faster than any alien technology observed, emerged from Earth's slipstream gates, shimmering under the light of Sol and moving with precise formation, a fleet the size of which no council member had anticipated, each vessel a fortress of strategic engineering, capable of autonomous operation or synchronized maneuvers with calculated precision, and the fleet's movement was detected first by the Varaxi, whose patrols, accustomed to minor interstellar traffic, were immediately confused by the sheer scale, the coordination, and the energy signatures that indicated propulsion technology far beyond what Earth had previously revealed. And when messages were sent demanding to know the fleet's intentions, the human response was concise, unemotional, and entirely strategic. Humanity was prepared to defend itself, but would not negotiate from a position of weakness, because weakness was a misconception that no longer applied, and as the Varaxi observers attempted to relay this information to their council, a ripple of disbelief spread among the Tari diplomats, the crystalline theorists, and the insectoid Zaldan, intelligence officers. For none had predicted that a species so consistently mocked could marshal such overwhelming force with flawless coordination. And back on Earth, in the command center orbiting Mars, Admiral Jonathan Reyes oversaw the fleet's alignment, his mind a calm storm of tactical assessments, knowing that each ship represented not just technological triumph, but the culmination of human resilience and ingenuity, that every engineer, scientist, and soldier who had contributed to this effort embodied the unpredictable nature of humanity, a trait that aliens had dismissed as chaos, but which was in fact their greatest strength. And as humanity's first communication beacon reached the Galactic Council, it was not a plea but a statement, a clear declaration that the era of mockery was over, that Earth's species would no longer be sidelined or underestimated. And in the council chambers, debates erupted among the alien delegates, with some calling for immediate preemptive action, believing the sudden display of power to be a threat, while others, more cautious, urged dialogue. But all were forced to acknowledge the undeniable fact that Earth had transformed from a fringe planet into a formidable military and technological force. And as the human fleet advanced into the outer sectors of the galaxy, minor skirmishes began almost immediately, first with scouting ships, then with patrols attempting to assert dominance. Yet humanity's strategy was unerring, a combination of electronic warfare, precise orbital bombardments, and psychological operations that demonstrated not brute force alone, but a comprehensive understanding of enemy psychology, exploitation of weaknesses, and foresight that few alien species could replicate. And each engagement was a lesson in efficiency, in the application of intelligence to warfare, in the way human adaptability allowed them to respond to unexpected tactics instantly. And as reports of these skirmishes spread through alien channels, disbelief turned to fear, and fear to respect, though grudgingly, because the galaxy had long conditioned itself to view humans as irrelevant. And now, with each calculated strike, each flawless maneuver, each display of strategic patience. That conditioning began to shatter, and humanity continued to advance, not for conquest or revenge, but because survival required acknowledgement, because proving their capabilities would ensure the continuation of their species. And with every year crossed, the human fleet left a trail of astonishment from the gas giant colonies where the Zrathi had attempted to intercept them, only to find themselves outmaneuvered and outclassed, to the asteroid belt stations where mercenary alien groups had sought to challenge Earth's forces, only to be neutralized with minimal collateral damage yet maximum psychological effect. And as these victories accumulated, human propaganda, carefully crafted for alien transmission, began circulating, not boasting but demonstrating, showing alien civilizations what had been dismissed as primitive species could plan, execute, and dominate with precision and relentless efficiency. And at the same time, humans were observing and learning from every encounter, analyzing alien technology, tactics, and communication methods, compiling intelligence at a rate that was itself unprecedented, transforming the fleet into an evolving machine of warfare and diplomacy, with Captain Elena Morales coordinating reconnaissance and tactical strikes, and Lieutenant Marcus Green managing communications, ensuring that every message sent to alien worlds was both a warning and a subtle display of strategic intent, all while scientists on board develop enhancements, from adaptive shielding to quantum computing arrays capable of decrypting alien codes faster than any previous technology. And as the fleet approached the core sectors, the Central Council, which had once mocked humanity as a mere footnote in the annals of galactic history, began to experience panic, issuing emergency summits, sending delegations in haste, and scrambling fleets that had previously been considered invincible. Yet even these forces, vast in number and armed with weapons capable of obliterating human cities from orbit, were systematically countered, avoided, or rendered ineffective by human strategy, which combined old-fashioned ingenuity with modern technological marvels, drawing on centuries of trial, error, and adaptation. And throughout these operations, humanity revealed not only power but a moral code, choosing to target only those who actively threaten them or pose a strategic risk, earning cautious admiration from certain alien factions who began to reconsider their own assumptions about war, diplomacy, and the underestimated species. And as the first true council confrontation loomed, with fleets arrayed on all sides and communications channels filled with desperate demands, threats, and pleas for ceasefire, humanity stood firm, led by President Rebecca Langston, who, addressing the galaxy through a universal translator, stated clearly that humans had been dismissed, mocked, and threatened for centuries, yet they had survived, adapted, and now commanded a fleet that no alien species could ignore, and the galaxy, for the first time, understood the enormity of their misjudgment, and that underestimation had brought them to the brink of a confrontation that would redefine power, respect, and fear across star systems. And as the council chambers went silent, as alien delegates recalculated their assumptions, as fleets moved cautiously in response to human positioning, and as Earth citizens watched the first transmission of their fleet entering deep space with pride and trepidation, humanity had proven a fundamental truth. The galaxy may mock, dismiss, and underestimate, but when the underestimated rise, they do so not with chaos, but with precision, intelligence, and an indomitable spirit. And from this moment forward, no council, no empire, no species would ever again presume Earth was irrelevant. For the first fleet had arrived, and the age of human ascendancy had begun, not with a shout, not with arrogance, but with the quiet, relentless, and unyielding demonstration of what it truly meant to be human, and as the light of distant stars reflected off the armored hulls of human warships, the galaxy collectively understood that the species they had mocked for so long had become the standard against which all others would be measured, and there was no going back, no rewriting history, only the acknowledgement that Earth's humans were no longer a subject of ridicule, but a force of nature whose arrival had reshaped the balance of power. And as communications between alien fleets conveyed alarm, as calculations ran endlessly through alien computational networks, and as the first human ambassador prepared to address the Council directly, the full scope of humanity's capabilities became apparent, and with every passing moment, the legend of the first fleet grew, a living testament to the underestimated, the resilient, and the brilliant, and in that moment, every corner of the galaxy began to whisper the same realization. Humanity should never have been mocked. Humanity should never have been underestimated, and humanity had arrived to claim its place among the stars. As the First Fleet continued its relentless advance through the outer sectors, alien intelligence networks struggled to keep pace, scrambling to understand human tactics and technology. For every attempt to intercept, ambush, or outmaneuver fleet was met with calculated precision, as if humanity had anticipated each move decade in advance. And aboard the flagship Horizon, Admiral Jonathan Reyes monitored hundreds of simultaneous operations, each coordinated to exploit enemy weaknesses, avoid unnecessary casualties, and project both strength and inevitability, while Captain Elena Morales oversaw reconnaissance units scanning for hidden fleets, analyzing propulsion signatures, weapon outputs, and command hierarchies, feeding real-time data into the central AI that managed the fleet's collective strategy, and Lieutenant Marcus Green ensured that communication channels were secure both internally and externally to prevent misinformation, interception, or panic, while also broadcasting carefully curated transmissions to the galaxy, displaying humanity's discipline, resolve, and willingness to respond to aggression without provocation. And these broadcasts spread rapidly, reaching the Varaxi home systems first, where the crystalline delegates, previously so smug and self-assured, began to whisper mistakes, miscalculations, and underestimations as reports arrived of entire patrol wings neutralized without the loss of a single human vessel. And across the Tari star clusters, the cephalopodic lords marveled at humanity's ability to coordinate massive operations without chaos, using a combination of strategic foresight, psychological warfare, and technology that allowed them to manipulate electromagnetic fields, quantum shields, and advanced propulsion far beyond any previously observed. And in the Zaldan sectors, insectoid admirals ordered emergency retreats, recalibrating every defensive installation, only to find that humanity's forces had anticipated these adjustments, creating traps that forced enemy units into positions where capture, surrender, or total destruction were the only options. And as these engagements continued, human scientists aboard the fleet refined energy modulation, adaptive armor, and cloaking systems, all while learning from alien designs in real time, turning captured drones, intercepted communications, and even debris fields into data that further enhanced the fleet's capabilities. And the scale of human preparation became evident not only in technology but in doctrine, as every squadron, every fighter, every automated defense system operated as part of a living network, capable of autonomous decision-making yet synchronized with the fleet's overarching strategy, allowing humans to respond to unexpected maneuvers with instantaneous efficiency, while the aliens, accustomed to rigid hierarchies and delayed communication loops, struggled to adapt. And as the first major engagement with a coalition of outer sector warships began near the gas giant Viridian, humans demonstrated both restraint and ruthlessness, disabling critical systems, severing supply lines, and neutralizing command ships with surgical precision, ensuring that enemy morale collapsed faster than physical fleets. And each success compounded the psychological effect across multiple species, causing debates, panic, and desperation to ripple through councils and war rooms alike, as no species had encountered an adversary that could simultaneously project overwhelming force, gather intelligence at superluminal speeds, adapt tactics on the fly, and maintain an ethical code that discouraged unnecessary destruction. And in the midst of these operations back on Earth, political leaders coordinated diplomatic channels, ensuring that neutral systems, unaware of the full extent of human power, remained cautious, respectful, and inclined to offer support or sanctuary, leveraging every victory not merely to destroy opposition but to reshape alliances, demonstrate strategic superiority, and establish humanity's presence as a permanent and undeniable force. And as fleet reports arrived detailing the capture of enemy vessels, the rescue of prisoners, and the clever use of terrain and environmental factors in asteroid belts, gas clouds, and magnetic fields, a pattern emerged across the galaxy, showing that humans were not merely fighting. They were teaching, displaying a level of mastery in space warfare that combined centuries of earthly experience with revolutionary innovation. And every alien species that had once scoffed at Earth's primitive weapons and chaotic societies now reevaluated everything they believed about human intelligence, resilience, and strategic thinking, while the Council, convening emergency sessions, found itself unable to formulate a coherent response. For every offensive maneuver was countered, every blockade bypassed, and every communication misdirection anticipated, and, as the human fleet reached the fringe of the central cluster, encountering combined fleets from multiple systems attempting to encircle and overwhelm them, humanity's coordination and technology proved decisive, neutralizing threats in ways that alien commanders described as bordering on prescience, as each move, strike, and countermeasure was executed with efficiency that defied conventional understanding. And in captured communications, intercepted by human cryptographers, alien leaders, openly admitted fear, disbelief, and the dawning realization that their dismissive attitudes toward Earth had been catastrophic errors, as humanity's first fleet pressed deeper into contested space, leaving behind not only destroyed vessels, but a message that would reverberate for centuries. Underestimating humans was no longer an option, and the galaxy would be forced to acknowledge that the species they had mocked and ignored had become the most formidable force they had ever encountered, and within the fleet itself, crew members displayed calm determination, professionalism, and a quiet pride, knowing that each operation, from strategic bombing to close-quarters interdiction, reflected the culmination of human ingenuity, cooperation, and unyielding resolve, and as alien fleets faltered, retreated, or surrendered, humanity demonstrated that victory was not merely the destruction of enemies, but the strategic imposition of a new reality, one in which humans were no longer peripheral actors, but central figures in the galaxy's unfolding drama. And as the first fleet established forward positions, integrated capture technologies, and coordinated with Earth-based command centers, it became clear that this was only the beginning of a campaign that would reshape politics, power, and respect across star systems, proving that a species dismissed as weak could, with preparation, intelligence, and determination, redefine what it meant to be strong, respected, and feared, and the First Fleet, still advancing, became a symbol, a living testament to human potential. And as reports continued to arrive from every encounter, detailing alien astonishment, the effective coordination of multi-system operations, and the precise application of human tactics that leverage both technology and ingenuity, the galaxy began to whisper a new understanding, repeating the truth that humans themselves had long known. The era of mockery was over, the underestimated had risen, and the First Fleet was not just a military force, but the herald of humanity's rightful place among the stars. And as the fleet pushed further into council-controlled space, capturing vital communication nodes, securing strategic jump points, and demonstrating the seamless integration of technology, intelligence, and tactical acumen, the aliens could only observe in disbelief, acknowledging that Earth had evolved from a planet dismissed as chaotic and insignificant into a species capable of dictating the terms of engagement, commanding attention, respect, and fear simultaneously, and with every calculated maneuver, every precise strike, every demonstration of strategic brilliance. Humanity's reputation transformed from a subject of ridicule into a standard by which all others would be measured. And across the galaxy, from the crystalline halls of Araxi councils to the fluidic chambers of Tari lords to the hive structures of Zaldan, there emerged a single, unavoidable truth. Humans were no longer weak, humans were no longer irrelevant, and humanity's First Fleet had irrevocably changed the balance of power. As humanity's First Fleet pressed further into the heart of contested space, the scale of its operations became increasingly apparent to every alien intelligence network attempting to track its progress, for the human forces displayed a level of coordination and adaptability that defied conventional understanding, blending decades of planning, predictive algorithms, and decentralized command in a way that allowed individual ships to make split-second tactical decisions while remaining fully synchronized with the fleet's overarching objectives. And aboard the flagship Horizon, Admiral Jonathan Reyes continued to oversee every movement, analyzing sensor data, enemy formations, and environmental hazards while maintaining precise control over the fleet's momentum, as Captain Elena Morales directed reconnaissance drones into unexplored sectors, gathering intelligence on alien fleet dispositions, hidden installations, and potential reinforcements, while Lieutenant Marcus Green monitored encrypted communication channels, ensuring that any attempt by enemy forces to deceive, jam, or manipulate the fleet was immediately identified and countered. And as humans engaged in their first sustained battles with combined fleets of the Outer Cluster Coalition, their tactics revealed a unique combination of restraint, strategy, and ingenuity, striking not just at ships but at command structures, supply lines, and critical infrastructure, exploiting weaknesses at alien. Commanders assumed would remain secure, and as these engagements unfolded, alien leaders, previously convinced of humanity's inferiority, were forced to confront the reality that their assumptions had been catastrophically flawed, as the precision and efficiency of human operations demonstrated an understanding of warfare that surpassed brute force, showing adaptability, foresight, and creativity in every maneuver, and across multiple systems. The ripple effects of these victories began to reshape alliances, destabilize established power structures, and sow uncertainty among species that had long considered themselves dominant. While Earth-based political and scientific teams continued to coordinate operations, integrating intelligence from each engagement into predictive models that refine fleet movements, weapon deployment, and electronic warfare strategies, allowing the humans to anticipate enemy actions before they occurred, a capability that alien commanders found increasingly difficult to counter. And as the First Fleet approached the strategically vital Viridian Nebula, a dense region of stellar clouds, asteroids, and energy anomalies that had long been considered impassable by conventional fleets, humanity's ingenuity shone. As the engineers aboard the Horizon had developed propulsion enhancements and navigational algorithms that allowed ships to traverse the hazardous environment with minimal risk while positioning themselves to flank enemy forces and secure jump points that were critical to controlling regional supply and communication lines. And in the council chambers, panic spread among the Voraxi, Tari, Zaldan, and other member species, as reports arrived detailing not only the fleet's advance, but the precision with which humans neutralized patrols, commandeered resources, and avoided unnecessary collateral damage, demonstrating an operational sophistication that alien strategists had long believed was beyond Earth's capacity. And within the fleet itself, morale remained high, disciplined, and focused, as each crew member understood the broader significance of their actions, that every tactical decision, every calculated risk, and every display of ingenuity was shaping the perception of humanity across countless worlds. And as the fleet engaged the first true council blockade, a combined force of crystalline Voraxi dreadnoughts, cephalopodic Tari cruisers, and Zaldan command ships, humanity demonstrated both overwhelming strength and operational finesse, deploying electronic countermeasures to disrupt enemy targeting systems, using adaptive shielding to absorb energy discharges, and coordinating simultaneous strikes that targeted vulnerabilities in a sequence that alien commanders had never considered. And as each enemy vessel fell, either incapacitated or captured, the psychological impact reverberated throughout the blockade, causing hesitation, confusion, and mistrust among alien commanders who realized that their previous assumptions about human unpredictability were accurate but underestimated, and that humanity had transformed that unpredictability into a decisive strategic advantage. And with every captured communication, every intercepted data stream, and every alien attempt to regroup, humans adapted instantly, reconfiguring fleet formations, modifying attack vectors, and exploiting environmental anomalies such as asteroid fields, ion storms, and gravity wells to their advantage, while maintaining a strict operational ethic that minimized civilian and neutral casualties, demonstrating that human warfare combined not just raw power but intelligence, restraint, and ethical consideration. And as word of these operations spread across the galaxy, fear and respect began to replace mockery, with smaller species sending envoys to Earth to offer allegiance, technical support, or safe harbor, and even some larger factions began secret negotiations, attempting to avoid further conflict while acknowledging humanity's newfound dominance. And aboard the Horizon, Admiral Reyes convened a strategic session to evaluate next moves, knowing that the First Fleet's mission was not merely to win battles, but to establish a precedent, to demonstrate that humanity's rise was inevitable, methodical, and unstoppable. And as the fleet prepared to enter the inner sectors where Council influence was absolute, human forces continued to display innovation in both technology and strategy, developing adaptive drone swarms capable of real-time autonomous decision-making, quantum computing arrays that decrypted enemy codes before they could be executed, and coordinated multi-system operations that left alien fleets incapable of mounting a coherent defense. And with every engagement, humanity's reputation evolved, as stories of their efficiency, precision, and unwavering discipline spread through intercepted transmissions, fueling both awe and panic, while neutral systems began to realign, anticipating the inevitable consequences of resisting or underestimating the human species. As the First Fleet established forward positions near strategic jump points, command centers, and energy hubs, it became evident that human dominance was not just a matter of firepower, but of unmatched strategic foresight, technological innovation, and psychological acuity, a combination that ensured that no alien force could underestimate, outmaneuver, or outthink them, and the galaxy watched in stunned silence as humans, a species once dismissed as chaotic and insignificant, now controlled the pace, location, and outcome of every encounter, demonstrating that patience, preparation, and relentless ingenuity were the true measures of power, and that from this moment forward, the underestimated had risen, the mocked had triumphed, and the First Fleet was not simply a military formation, but a symbol of humanity's unyielding spirit, intelligence, and ability to redefine the rules of engagement, proving to the galaxy that the era of ridicule was over, and that Earth's species, long considered irrelevant, had arrived to claim its rightful place among the stars, not through arrogance or chaos, but through meticulous planning, innovation, and the kind of relentless determination that only humans could muster. And as the fleet continued to advance, every maneuver, strike, and tactical decision reinforced a singular truth across star systems, that humanity had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same, and the First Fleet was only the beginning of a revolution that would redefine power, respect, and fear across every corner of space. As humanity's First Fleet pushed deeper into council control sectors, alien civilizations scrambled desperately to adapt. But every countermeasure proved inadequate against the combination of human ingenuity, technology, and coordination, for humans had mastered a way of turning their unpredictability into a strategic weapon, using environmental anomalies, deceptive maneuvers, and advanced computational forecasting to anticipate enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. And aboard the flagship Horizon, Admiral Jonathan Reyes analyzed data from hundreds of simultaneous engagements, observing how smaller skirmishes fed into the broader operational plan, how captured vessels' intelligence, and even enemy mistakes were immediately incorporated into real-time adjustments that increased fleet efficiency, while Captain Elena Morales oversaw reconnaissance units that penetrated deep into enemy territory, mapping defenses, supply routes, and hidden installations that alien commanders assumed were secure, and Lieutenant Marcus Green coordinated communications, broadcasting deliberately ambiguous transmissions that sowed confusion, misdirection, and mistrust among alien fleets, turning over confidence into vulnerability. And as human forces encountered the combined fleets of multiple species, they executed maneuvers that alien leaders described as unprecedented, using electronic countermeasures to disable targeting systems, adaptive shields to absorb massive energy discharges, and synchronized attacks that disabled critical systems without unnecessary destruction, demonstrating a mastery of both offense and defense that few species could comprehend. And across the galaxy, intelligence networks scrambled to make sense of the First Fleet's operations, noting that humans were capable not only of rapid innovation, but of disciplined execution, adapting instantaneously to unforeseen circumstances while maintaining a broader strategic vision. And as the fleet moved through asteroid fields, gas clouds, and energy storms that alien forces had considered natural barriers, humans turned these hazards into tactical advantages, using cloaked reconnaissance drones, precision strikes, and environmental manipulation to outflank and neutralize enemy formations, while carefully documenting every encounter to refine future operations. And in council chambers where alien delegates once laughed at Earth, panic now spread. Discussions erupted over failed predictions, lost vessels, and the stark realization that humanity's fleet was capable of dictating the pace, location, and outcome of every confrontation, as even the largest and most technologically advanced ships were systematically outmaneuvered, their strategies anticipated and countered, their supply lines severed, and their command structures disrupted. And as the First Fleet approached the Viridian Nebula, a region long considered impassable by conventional fleets, human engineers had developed propulsion adaptations and navigational algorithms that allowed them to traverse the hazardous environment while positioning themselves to flank enemy forces and secure critical jump points. And in doing so, humanity demonstrated not only technological superiority, but a strategic patience and foresight that left alien commanders both frustrated and fearful, realizing that no amount of brute force could overcome the combination of human intelligence, adaptability, and coordination. And as smaller alien factions began to reconsider their positions, some sending envoys to Earth in hope of alliance or protection. Larger powers scrambled to redeploy fleets, reinforce defensive positions, and anticipate further human advances, only to find that every move was anticipated, countered, or exploited. And while human forces captured enemy vessels, intercepted communications, and commandeered installations, they maintained operational discipline, minimizing collateral damage while maximizing strategic impact, proving that humans were not merely ruthless conquerors, but master strategists capable of achieving victory with efficiency and precision. And as the First Fleet secured forward positions across multiple systems, integrating capture technology, mapping hyperspace lanes, and coordinating with Earth-based command centers, alien civilizations began to realize that this was not an isolated campaign, but a transformation in the balance of power, a demonstration that humanity's rise was inevitable, methodical, and unstoppable. And within the fleet itself, morale remained high, professional, and disciplined, each crew member aware that their actions were shaping the galaxy's perception of their species, and every engagement reinforced humanity's reputation as a force that combined adaptability, ethical consideration, intelligence, and relentless determination. And as the First Fleet engaged the outer defenses of the Central Council's territory, human commanders demonstrated an extraordinary combination of offensive and defensive tactics, using decoy maneuvers, electronic warfare, drone swarms, and coordinated energy discharges to neutralize superior numbers without incurring significant losses, while simultaneously projecting psychological pressure that caused hesitation, mistrust, and internal conflict within alien command structures. And across the galaxy, stories of the fleet's efficiency, precision, and strategic brilliance spread, causing previously neutral systems to reconsider alliances, offering support, intelligence, or safe harbor. And even some rival factions began to negotiate in secret, acknowledging that resisting humanity now carried risks far beyond any prior calculation. And aboard the Horizon, Admiral Reyes convened daily strategic sessions, integrating intelligence from every skirmish, analyzing enemy responses, and refining plans for the fleet's ongoing advance, while Captain Morales and Lieutenant Green continued to orchestrate reconnaissance, tactical strikes, and communication operations with flawless coordination. And as human forces pressed into heavily fortified regions, they displayed a level of operational mastery that alien commanders struggled to comprehend, neutralizing dreadnoughts, disrupting command networks, and controlling hyperspace lanes with a combination of foresight, adaptability, and precision that no other species could match. And as the First Fleet established its presence in the core sectors, capturing critical infrastructure, securing jump points, and demonstrating both restraint and efficiency in its operations, alien civilizations were forced to acknowledge the emergence of a new power paradigm, one defined not by arrogance, size, or tradition, but by the relentless application of intelligence, innovation, and human will. And as communications between fleets carried reports of victories, strategic ingenuity, and minimal casualties, the galaxy began to whisper the same realization repeatedly. Humans were no longer the species to mock, underestimate, or ignore, for the First Fleet had irrevocably altered the perception of humanity, demonstrating that patience, preparation, and unyielding determination could allow the underestimated to become the dominant force, that mockery and dismissal could be transformed into fear and respect, and that from this moment forward, the era of human ascendancy had begun, with the First Fleet serving as both symbol and instrument of a species that would redefine power, respect, and influence across every system it touched, leaving every alien civilization to confront the truth that underestimating humans had been a mistake with consequences they could no longer control, and that the blue planet once dismissed as irrelevant had now produced a force capable of rewriting the rules of engagement in the galaxy, demonstrating that humanity's arrival was not merely a display of power, but the assertion of inevitability, intelligence, and indomitable spirit, reshaping every calculation, strategy, and expectation across star systems, and proving beyond any doubt that the species they had mocked had risen to claim its place among the stars. As humanity's First Fleet continued its inexorable advance deeper into council-controlled space, alien civilizations scrambled desperately to understand and counter the unprecedented combination of human technology, strategy, and adaptability. For every maneuver the fleet executed was precise, coordinated, and deliberately calculated to exploit weaknesses that alien commanders had long assumed would remain secure. And aboard the flagship Horizon, Admiral Jonathan Reyes meticulously monitored sensor arrays, fleet formations, and enemy deployments, anticipating moves with predictive algorithms, real-time intelligence, and decades of strategic planning, while Captain Elena Morales directed reconnaissance drones into unexplored regions, mapping enemy fleets, hidden stations, and hyperspace anomalies with meticulous detail, and Lieutenant Marcus Green maintained secure communications, intercepting alien transmissions, sowing confusion, and ensuring the fleet operated as a single, cohesive unit, capable of instantaneous adaptation, without the delays that crippled rigid alien hierarchies. And as engagement intensified, human forces demonstrated mastery over multi-system operations, combining electronic warfare, adaptive shields, drone swarms, and precision strikes to neutralize threats without unnecessary destruction, while also gathering intelligence to refine future tactics. And across the galaxy, intelligence networks were overwhelmed, attempting to track the fleet's progress, comprehend its capabilities, and predict its actions, only to find that humanity's combination of foresight, innovation, and flexibility rendered conventional analysis obsolete. And as the first fleet approached the Viridian Nebula, a region previously deemed impassable by conventional fleets due to dense gas clouds, magnetic anomalies, and asteroid fields, humans turned hazards into advantages, deploying cloaked drones, precision strikes, and environmental manipulation to outmaneuver enemy forces, secure strategic jump points, and establish control over vital sectors, while alien commanders, accustomed to rigid protocol and linear tactics, found themselves outpaced, outthought, and outmaneuvered at every turn. And as the fleet engaged the outer defenses of the Central Council, combining Voraxi dreadnoughts, Tari cruisers, and Zaldan command vessels, humans executed synchronized operations that disabled critical systems, fractured command hierarchies, and forced enemy units into positions that left them vulnerable, revealing a level of operational sophistication that alien strategists had never encountered. And as reports of victories, captures, and minimal casualties reached council chambers, panic spread among delegates who had once dismissed humanity as irrelevant, as every action of the First Fleet demonstrated that humans were not only capable of overwhelming force, but of strategic brilliance, ethical warfare, and instantaneous adaptation. And across multiple systems, smaller factions began to seek alliances, offer intelligence, or provide sanctuary to humanity, while larger powers scrambled to regroup, fortify defenses, and coordinate responses, only to find their efforts anticipated, countered, and often turn against them in ways that highlighted human ingenuity, foresight, and the capacity to convert challenges into advantages. And aboard the Horizon, Admiral Reyes convened continuous strategic assessments, integrating intelligence from every engagement, enemy communications, and environmental analysis, refining fleet deployment, weapon utilization, and electronic warfare techniques in real time, while Captain Morales and Lieutenant Green ensured reconnaissance, tactical operations, and communication channels operated flawlessly, enabling the fleet to maintain overwhelming initiative in every encounter. And as human forces moved through heavily fortified sectors, they neutralized enemy dreadnoughts, captured command ships, and controlled hyperspace lanes with precision, while simultaneously demonstrating restraint and minimizing collateral damage, proving that human dominance was achieved not only through superior technology and numbers, but through strategy, intelligence, and ethical consideration. And across the galaxy, stories of these operations spread rapidly, transforming perception, inspiring caution, admiration, and fear, as alien civilizations realized that resisting humanity now carried catastrophic consequences, and that the species they had mocked for centuries had mastered both the art of war and the science of diplomacy, using calculated displays of power, psychological operations, and precise operational control to reshape alliances, influence neutral systems, and project authority across countless star systems. And as the fleet established forward positions, secured critical installations, and integrated capture technologies, it became evident that humanity was no longer peripheral but central to galactic power dynamics, dictating the pace, location, and outcome of engagements, forcing alien commanders to reconsider every assumption, every plan, and every prediction they had made about Earth. And as the First Fleet continued to advance, demonstrating innovation, adaptability, and discipline in every operation, the galaxy gradually acknowledged a singular truth, whispered across councils, fleets, and intelligence networks alike. Humans were no longer a species to mock or underestimate. Humanity had risen, and the First Fleet was not merely a force of war, but a herald of a new era, one defined by the relentless application of intelligence, creativity, and indomitable will, and with each operation, whether capturing enemy vessels, securing strategic points, or demonstrating operational finesse, humans solidified a reputation that would resonate for centuries, proving that patience, preparation, and determination could transform the underestimated into the dominant, and that the era of ridicule had ended, replaced by an era where the galaxy recognized that Earth species had arrived not only to survive but to command, not through arrogance or chaos, but through precise, calculated, and unstoppable demonstration of human ingenuity, strategy, and spirit. And as the First Fleet continued its campaign, every alien fleet, council chamber, and intelligence network came to understand a fundamental reality, that the species they had dismissed as weak had risen to a level of capability that redefined power across the galaxy, ensuring that humanity would never again be ignored, mocked, or underestimated, and that from this moment forward, the First Fleet was a standard by which all other forces would be measured, the living proof that underestimation of humans carried consequences that no civilization could endure. As humanity's First Fleet advanced into the inner sectors of council control space, alien civilizations found themselves in uncharted territory, facing an opponent whose combination of strategy, technology, and adaptability defied all prior expectations. For every move humans made was calculated to exploit weaknesses, disrupt command structures, and project overwhelming power without unnecessary destruction. And aboard the flagship Horizon, Admiral Jonathan Reyes coordinated simultaneous operations across multiple star systems, analyzing real-time intelligence, environmental hazards, and enemy formations to ensure that each strike, maneuver, and deployment reinforced the fleet's strategic objectives, while Captain Elena Morales directed reconnaissance units into heavily fortified regions, gathering data on hidden installations, supply lines, and enemy coordination networks. And Lieutenant Marcus Green ensured that all communications, both internal and external, were secure, encrypted, and strategically deployed to create confusion, misinformation, and psychological pressure among alien fleets. And as the First Fleet engaged the combined defenses of multiple council species, humans demonstrated operational mastery that integrated electronic warfare, adaptive shields, drone swarms, and precise energy strikes to neutralize critical threats, disable command ships, and disrupt coordination across the enemy's forces, while simultaneously gathering intelligence to refine tactics for future encounters. And across the galaxy, reports of human victories, minimal casualties, and strategic brilliance caused panic, disbelief, and reassessment as species that had once considered Earth insignificant realized that they were witnessing the rise of a civilization capable of dictating the terms of engagement across entire regions. And as smaller factions began to seek alliances, offer intelligence, or provide sanctuary, larger powers scrambled to consolidate fleets, fortify defenses, and anticipate further human advances, only to find that the First Fleet anticipated, countered, and exploited every action, turning environmental hazards, enemy mistakes, and even internal dissent into advantages. And in sectors previously thought impregnable, humans deployed cloak reconnaissance drones, adaptive energy manipulation, and advanced navigation algorithms to bypass defenses, secure strategic jump points, and establish dominance, demonstrating not just military might, but strategic foresight, innovation, and ethical precision, while alien commanders, constrained by rigid hierarchies and slower communication, found themselves unable to adapt, outmaneuvered at every turn, and increasingly fearful of the consequences of continued resistance. And aboard the Horizon, Admiral Reyes convened continuous tactical briefings, integrating intelligence from every encounter, enemy communication, and environmental variable to optimize fleet deployment, weapon utilization, and electronic warfare, while Captain Morales and Lieutenant Green managed reconnaissance, strike coordination, and communications with flawless efficiency, ensuring that human forces maintain initiative and control over every engagement. And as human forces penetrated heavily fortified sectors, neutralizing dreadnoughts, capturing command ships, and controlling hyperspace lanes with precision, they demonstrated that superiority was achieved not merely through technology or numbers, but through foresight, intelligence, adaptability, and relentless determination. And across the galaxy, the psychological impact of these operations spread rapidly, inspiring awe, fear, and grudging respect, as neutral systems reconsidered alliances, offered support, and attempted to avoid confrontation, while rival factions sought negotiation or appeasement, recognizing that humanity's capabilities had fundamentally altered the balance of power, and as the First Fleet established forward positions, secured critical installations, integrated capture technology, and coordinated with Earth-based command centers, it became evident that humans were no longer peripheral actors, but central figures in galactic power dynamics, dictating the pace, location, and outcome of engagements, forcing alien civilizations to reconsider every assumption, strategy, and prediction regarding Earth. And as the First Fleet continued to advance, every engagement, tactical decision, and technological demonstration reinforced the truth that humans had risen from being underestimated, mocked, and dismissed to a position of dominance, demonstrating that patience, preparation, and innovation could elevate a species to unprecedented power, and that the era of ridicule was over, replaced by an era where humanity commanded respect, fear, and recognition across countless star systems. And as the fleet continued its campaign, capturing enemy vessels, securing jump points, and demonstrating strategic mastery, alien fleets struggled to adapt. Councils debated emergency measures, and neutral systems realigned in recognition of the unstoppable momentum humanity had generated. And within the fleet, crew members maintained discipline, focus, and pride, understanding that every maneuver, strike, and operation was a message to the galaxy. Underestimating humans had been a catastrophic error, and from this moment forward, the First Fleet was not merely a military force, but the living embodiment of humanity's ingenuity, resilience, and indomitable spirit, proving that a species dismissed as chaotic and insignificant could redefine the rules of engagement, reshape alliances, and impose its with precision, intelligence, and unyielding determination. And as reports continue to pour in detailing victories, captures, strategic innovations, and the collapse of alien coordination, the galaxy began to recognize a singular, unavoidable reality. Humans were no longer to be mocked, underestimated, or ignored, for the First Fleet had irrevocably altered perceptions, power dynamics, and expectations, demonstrating that Earth's species had arrived to claim its rightful place among the stars, not through arrogance or chaos, but through meticulous, relentless, and unstoppable application of intelligence, strategy, and human will. And that from this moment onward, humanity's rise would serve as a benchmark against which all civilizations would be measured. The underestimated had become the dominant, and the age of human ascendancy was inescapably underway. As humanity's First Fleet pressed ever deeper into the core sectors, the full magnitude of their presence became undeniable to every alien civilization, for the combination of human technological superiority, operational discipline, and strategic foresight created a force that was simultaneously adaptive, relentless, and precise. And aboard the flagship Horizon, Admiral Jonathan Reyes monitored simultaneous engagements across dozens of star systems, analyzing enemy formations, environmental hazards, and potential reinforcements, while adjusting fleet maneuvers in real time to maintain absolute initiative, while Captain Elena Morales directed reconnaissance units to infiltrate heavily fortified enemy territories, mapping command networks, weapon emplacements, and supply chains with surgical accuracy, and Lieutenant Marcus Green ensured that communications were secure, encrypted, and strategically deployed to create confusion, misinformation, and miscalculation among alien fleets, turning over confidence and rigid hierarchical thinking into vulnerabilities that humans could exploit at will. And as the fleet engaged the combined forces of Waraxi dreadnoughts, Tari cruisers, and Zaldin command vessels, human forces demonstrated an unprecedented level of operational mastery, integrating electronic warfare, adaptive shields, drone swarms, and precision energy strikes to disable critical systems, fracture command hierarchies, and neutralize threats with minimal collateral damage, while simultaneously gathering intelligence to refine future tactical decisions. And across the galaxy, alien intelligence networks were overwhelmed, attempting to track the fleet's movements, understand human tactics, and predict their actions, only to find that humans anticipated each maneuver, adapted instantly, and turned even environmental hazards, intercepted communications, and enemy miscalculations into decisive advantages. And as the First Fleet approached strategic jump points, dense nebulae, and heavily defended installations, human engineers employed advanced navigation algorithms, adaptive propulsion systems, and cloak reconnaissance drones to bypass defenses, secure key positions, and establish a forward operational network that alien commanders found impossible to counter, while smaller species began offering allegiance, intelligence, and safe harbors in recognition of the unstoppable momentum humanity had generated, and larger powers scrambled to regroup, coordinate fleets, and develop countermeasures, only to have their efforts anticipated, neutralized, or turn against them with efficiency that defied comprehension. And aboard the Horizon, Admiral Reyes conducted continuous strategic assessments, integrating every piece of intelligence, environmental analysis, and enemy behavior to refine fleet deployment, weapon coordination, and electronic warfare tactics in real time, while Captain Morales and Lieutenant Green maintained flawless execution of reconnaissance, strike coordination, and communication operations, ensuring that human forces retained absolute initiative in every engagement. And as human forces penetrated the heart of council-controlled space, neutralizing dreadnoughts, capturing command ships, and controlling hyperspace lanes with precision, they proved that superiority was achieved not only through technological advantage or numerical strength, but through strategic foresight, adaptability, and relentless discipline. And across the galaxy, reports of these operations spread rapidly, instilling awe, fear, and grudging respect as alien civilizations realized that the species they had once dismissed as irrelevant now dictated the terms of engagement across entire regions, and that humanity's rise was methodical, inevitable, and unstoppable. And as the first fleet established forward positions, integrated capture technologies, and coordinated with Earth-based command centers, it became evident that humans were no longer peripheral actors, but central figures in galactic power dynamics, shaping alliances, controlling strategic nodes, and projecting influence across countless star systems. And as the fleet continued to advance, every victory, tactical innovation, and calculated maneuver reinforced the truth that humans had risen from being mocked and underestimated to become the dominant species, demonstrating that patience, preparation, and ingenuity could transform a dismissed civilization into an unstoppable force, and that the era of ridicule had ended, replaced by an era in which humanity commanded respect, fear, and recognition throughout the galaxy. And as the fleet captured enemy vessels, secured critical infrastructure, and demonstrated operational brilliance, alien fleets struggled to adapt, councils debated emergency measures, and neutral systems realigned in acknowledgement of the unstoppable momentum humanity had achieved. And within the fleet, crew members maintained unwavering discipline, focus, and pride, aware that every strike, maneuver, and operation sent a message to the galaxy that underestimating humans had been a catastrophic error, and that the First Fleet represented not only military might, but the embodiment of human ingenuity, resilience, and indomitable will, proving that a species once dismissed as chaotic and insignificant could redefine the rules of engagement, reshape alliances, and impose its will with precision, intelligence, and ethical determination. And as reports continued to arrive detailing strategic victories, innovative operations, and the collapse of alien coordination, the galaxy began to accept a singular, unavoidable reality. Humans were no longer to be mocked, underestimated, or ignored, for the First Fleet had irrevocably altered power dynamics, perceptions, and expectations, demonstrating that Earth's species had arrived to claim its rightful place among the stars, not through arrogance or chaos, but through the meticulous, calculated, and unstoppable application of intelligence, strategy, and human will. And from this moment onward, the First Fleet became the standard against which all civilizations would measure capability, the living proof that the underestimated could rise, the mock could triumph, and that the age of human ascendancy had begun in earnest. As humanity's First Fleet reached the very heart of Council space, the culmination of years of preparation, sacrifice, and calculated restraint finally revealed itself in full, undeniable clarity. For every alien civilization watching the unfolding events could now see that this was not a temporary surge of power or a reckless expansion, but the deliberate emergence of a species that had mastered the balance between force, intelligence, and control. And aboard the flagship Horizon, Admiral Jonathan Reyes stood before a wall of tactical displays showing dozens of systems stabilized under human oversight, hostile fleets neutralized or withdrawn, and communication channels flooded not with threats, but with requests for ceasefires, negotiations, and formal recognition. While Captain Elena Morales confirmed that reconnaissance units detected no coordinated enemy response remaining capable of challenging the fleet's position, and Lieutenant Marcus Green reported that encrypted transmissions from the council chambers had shifted in tone from defiance to caution, fear, and finally reluctant respect. And as the human fleet formed a vast, disciplined presence outside the central council system, its ships arranged not in aggressive assault formation, but in a precise, controlled display of power, the message was unmistakable. Humanity did not need to destroy the galaxy to dominate it, for dominance had already been achieved through superior planning, adaptability, and strategic inevitability. And within the council chambers, delegates who had once openly mocked Earth now spoke in subdued tones, reviewing recordings of engagements they could scarcely comprehend, watching simulations that showed no viable path to victory against the human fleet, and confronting the reality that their centuries of assumptions about power, hierarchy, and superiority had been fundamentally flawed. And when the council finally opened a direct channel, the transmission carried none of the arrogance of past communications, only measured words requesting dialogue, recognition, and an end to hostilities, and President Rebecca Langston addressed them calmly, stating that humanity had never sought domination for its own sake, but would never again accept dismissal, isolation, or threats, explaining that humans had learned through their own history that survival required preparation, unity, and the willingness to act decisively when ignored or endangered, and she made it clear that the First Fleet was not a weapon of conquest, but a guarantee that Earth would never again be treated as insignificant. And across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate and profound as hostile fleets powered down weapons, defensive stations stood down, and neutral systems formally recognized humanity as a major galactic power, while even former adversaries began restructuring their doctrines, strategies, and political assumptions in response to the undeniable truth that humans had reshaped the balance of power. And as treaties were drafted, trade routes reopened under human oversight, and security agreements formed, the First Fleet remained vigilant, not out of fear but discipline, ensuring that peace was enforced by capability rather than trust alone. And within the fleet, crew members reflected quietly on what they had achieved, knowing that every battle fought, every maneuver executed, and every restraint shown had contributed to a transformation far greater than simple victory, for they had forced the galaxy to evolve, to abandon complacency, and to recognize that intelligence, adaptability, and unity mattered more than ancient hierarchies or assumed superiority. And in the months that followed, alien historians, analysts, and strategists would study the rise of humanity, attempting to understand how a species once mocked for its chaos and internal conflicts had produced a force capable of outthinking, outmaneuvering, and outlasting every major power. And the conclusion would always be the same, that humans survived because they learned, adapted, and refused to accept limitations imposed by others. And as the First Fleet gradually transitioned from a wartime posture to a stabilizing presence, maintaining peace, deterring aggression, and overseeing the integration of Earth into galactic affairs, the legend of its arrival spread to even the most distant systems, becoming a cautionary tale whispered in council chambers and military.